Welcome, everyone. I am Jen Free. I'm Director of Sales at Cloud Structure, and I'll be your host today. So today you're going to be hearing from a property liability attorney and a security expert. And by the end of the hour, you'll have a clear picture of both your legal exposure and what you can actually do about it. So thank you for joining. We'll go over the quick agenda. We'll do some quick introductions. Who is panelists on today's show? The scope of the problem. So we'll talk about some of the statistics surrounding parking lot and garage issues, and then we'll go into some of those challenges and how you can actually protect yourself from that liability in terms of duty of care, how you can really go about providing documentation and protecting yourself in that aspect, how it affects your insurance and how you can kind of close that gap. Some of the actions that you can take to de-risk your garage and how to kind of communicate that with your residents. And at the very end, we'll end with a Q&A. But that being said, if you have any questions during the show, if something prompts a question, go ahead and throw it in the chat. We can kind of address those as they pop up. So you don't have to wait all the way until the very end. But if you do have a question, go ahead and throw it in to the chat. So again, thank you for joining, everyone. We're really excited to have you here today. Again, my name is Jen Free. I'm Director of Sales for Cloud Structure. My background is really on the operations side. I started off in the multifamily realm as a leasing agent, property manager, regional. So I have been in your shoes, and I know just how frustrating it can be to deal with parking lot issues, lease violations, how those things kind of affect your resident retention. And that's really why I'm passionate about Cloud Structure and what we do here in providing that AI aspect to security to really hone in, ramping up the security that you have on property. It's such a streamlined approach to save you time, save you money, and really keep your residents happy in terms of feeling safe on property and being able to get that safe aspect of living. So we also have Ed Burnett. He is our new Chief of Security and Operations for Cloud Structure. Really excited to have him on our team, but he is the retired VP for Security and Global Fraud Investigations at UPS. And during his tenure, he led the largest joint UPS and law enforcement investigation in the company's history, which involved 17 police jurisdictions. He went on to win California's Investigation of the Year award in 2019, and previously he served as a military investigator for the U.S. Army in Wiesbaden, Germany. So we're really excited to have you here, Ed. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jen. Appreciate the introduction.
And we also have Melinda Macbeth, who might look familiar to your guys. She is counsel for Offutt Kerman. She's a leading litigator specializing in landlord defense and liability law. Melinda, you bring such a great perspective, a legal insider's perspective on how to really safeguard your properties from property management risk. So we're really excited to have you here, Melinda. And if you'd take a moment to talk a little bit about Offutt Kerman, we'd love to hear.
Thank you for having me again, Jen. These are always fun. Offutt Kerman is one of the fastest growing civil litigation law firms in the country. We continue to expand. I think every time I do a webinar with you guys, we have another new office that just opened. This time, I'm happy to share that we just had offices open in Florida. We are on the West Coast now. We're on the East Coast, and we are in Dallas, Texas. We're kind of starting to spread out and invade everywhere that we can. We have different practice groups. We do everything from divorce, custody litigation, all the way over to the landlord representation group, which is what I am a part of. I'm specifically in the Maryland landlord representation group. And my 5-year anniversary with Offutt Kerman is next month. So hard to believe I've been there for 5 years already. It feels like no time and all of the time at once, but I'm glad to do it. And I'm not good at anything else. So here I am.
Well, congratulations on 5 years. It's very exciting. And we're very happy and grateful to have you here for your expertise and knowledge. Thank you, Melinda. And just a really quick background on Cloud Structure and what we do in the security space. So we bring AI intelligence together with human intelligence to really streamline, as I mentioned previously, security on your property. And so we do something that's called remote guarding, where we bring that AI in to notify a live human being, our remote guards, to talk down to an incident that's happening. So it provides that proactive approach to security. If there is suspicious or threatening activity happening on property, our guards are able to step in right then and there to deter that activity from progressing. They're also able to reach out to law enforcement or your own security team, and it does a great job of, again, providing that 98% deterrence rate and really cuts down on that extra unwanted activity that's happening on property. So again, it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I'll talk about it a little bit more further on into this webinar, and always happy to chat with you guys after the webinar. If you want to reach out, you'll have my contact information after that. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Car break-ins and auto theft have become such a prevalent issue in the United States as of the past few years. Every 26 seconds, a car is broken into. And it's very prevalent in multifamily realms because it's such a great opportunity for someone that's wanting to have access to all of these vehicles. Parking garages are often areas that aren't super secure. And so, Ed, you've spent years working in and around parking structures, longer than most people in this industry. And from that experience, I'd really like to learn kind of why and how vehicle theft has become so easy, because it's not just opportunistic anymore. It's, there's actually devices that people have access to online right now where it makes breaking into or stealing a car almost effortless. And what are we dealing with here?
Sure. So yeah, obviously this changed from the old Slim to them days where you'd walk up and the car handle. But there are a lot of different electronic activities that people are using. One of the most prevalent one is called a relay attack unit, and that's really where the thief, they work in tandem. They stand by your residence or your door to your apartment, and they have a receiver that intercepts the remote key fob signal to the actual vehicle. And once they receive that, then they're able to transmit that to the second bad guy who's standing close to the vehicle. And they receive it in a transmitter, and then they're able to manipulate the signal going into the car and then enter the car, unlock the car, and steal it very quickly. The best practice in preventing that is using what's called Faraday bags. And those are bags that you can get at any type of Best Buy type of store. And you can put your key fobs in the bag, and it prevents the signal from going out of that. So that prevents that. One of the other ones that we're seeing a lot of is called can bust injectors. And that's where they have a mechanism. They're able to, for example, remove the headlight of your actual vehicle or reach into the wheel well of the vehicle and connect it to the electronic wiring of the car. And they're able to override the locking mechanism with that as well. There's a couple of other ones that are very easy to use and quick, and that's a port cloner where they clone the actual device itself. One of the most frequently ones that's used as well as a jammer. And what that is when somebody exits their vehicle and they're walking away and you hit the fob to lock it, they actually jam that signal going to your vehicle. So it never does lock the car, and they're able to get into it very easily. That's why you really want to make sure that you're pushing that button twice and you're hearing that audible alert that the car's been locked. And then there's what's called enablers, and that's pretty much the same thing that a wire injector is, and that's just manipulating the internal wiring. So for those type of devices, the car manufacturers are consistently updating their security systems. And that's why it's very important that you pay attention to any type of recall, or you're taking your vehicle in for service, asking if they're able to update the security measures, technology purposes as well. So, it's really easy. It doesn't take very long, like you mentioned, but taking preventative steps like using the Faraday bags, making sure your vehicles are updated, listening for that second tone of the key fob push is critical to make sure that you're protecting your vehicles.
That's all great insight. And gosh, there are so many tools that are out there these days. I went ahead and switched to the next slide that kind of highlights some of those. And those tools and those the ways to break into vehicles, those are getting shared on social platforms. So you guys have, I'm sure, have heard about the TikTok trend with Kias and Hyundais, and it's bringing in children and young adults. It's really just a pandemic of this kind of break-in. And so one viral trend can really truly change your lot overnight. So thanks for going over some of those tools with us, Ed, and kind of how to prevent and protect yourself from that. And so, Melinda, I'm curious, when you first started seeing parking garage liability cases come across your desk, was there a moment when you noticed a real shift in how often these cases were being filed or the size of the claims?
Yeah, and I think it aligns with actually the statistics that are on the screen right now. Obviously, it's always been something that landlords have to deal with. It's always been a problem, but it really started to spike during the pandemic. Not immediately in for 2020 when things, the world locked down, but definitely maybe a year, 2 years into the pandemic, that's when I started to notice a spike in all sorts of different crimes and issues happening on multifamily properties. And we could speculate about the reasons for that. People were bored, they were stuck at home, crimes that they would normally go commit elsewhere, they're now just committing in their apartment communities, things like that. Also, I think the rise of the TikTok trends really contributed. The fact that there are some issues in juvenile justice system laws in different places, particularly here in Maryland where I live. It's a big problem. So the juvenile crime it's hard to control, and oftentimes a juvenile will get arrested for a car theft and they will be back out on the street within 5 hours. It's not uncommon for them to then go steal another car within 24 hours of having been arrested for stealing a car. So that is a problem that everybody's trying to solve, but obviously there's lots of different tensions there. The TikTok thing was very frustrating for me.
I'm sure that put a lot of work on your plate for sure. So thanks for kind of talking about that. Let's transition into, talking about duty of care and liability. What kind of falls on the responsibility of the property management company and whatnot. So Melinda, could you kind of break that down for us?
So, a landlord or a property owner in general really always has a duty of care, meaning that you have to, as the property owner, you need to make sure that you are aware of and addressing things that are potentially hazardous on your property. The more open and obvious they are, the higher your duty of care can be. Again, everything is going to be situational. So, pretty much my answer to every question of yours is going to be it depends, and then some form of explanation after that. But things that you should be doing on a regular basis, no matter what, as a multifamily or a property management or a landlord, are regular inspections of your property. You should be regularly walking the property and just surveying the conditions, making notes of things that need to be repaired. I mean, it can be as simple as picking up trash off the ground if you notice trash, but you want to look and make sure that there are adequate lighting everywhere. If you have light bulbs that have gone out, those need to be addressed and replaced as soon as possible. You need to make sure that there is reasonable security in place if crime is foreseeable. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go full bore if you are in what's considered a high crime area. But if you are in a high crime area, that adds to what they call foreseeability. The big questions in negligence cases are: was the incident foreseeable? Did the landlord know, or should they have known, that this was a potential problem? And then did they take steps that other people in the same situation would consider reasonable to stop it or prevent it? So adequate lighting, that's a huge one. Making sure that sight lines are clear, that's another big one. If you've got cameras up but you have shrubs or trees blocking the camera angle, then that is going to be a problem for you later on down the line. Also, do you have actual or constructive notice of the hazard? Has a tenant sent you an email saying, hey, I noticed that this door over here doesn't lock. I think that's a problem. That's actual notice. That's someone telling you about the problem. Constructive notice is when you should have known. When there's all sorts of factors that contribute to what your knowledge should have been. Prior criminal activity on or near the property is another contributing factor. Again, it's not the deciding factor, but if there have been a lot of issues in your area, then it's something that you need to take a closer look at. I always say that the first car break-in you have is usually not going to be a big problem for you, but the fifth or the 10th is going to be a problem because now you are aware that this is a recurring issue and it's something that you likely need to take some steps to try and address or fix. Oh, I live in Baltimore City. I don't know if you can hear the sirens, but here they go. I don't think this is a car theft, but you never know. You want to avoid things like deferred maintenance. If you are aware that one of your security measures is not in place right now, a broken gate, a down camera, doesn't mean that it has to be fixed immediately or else your liability is going to grow up. But the longer that a problem exists, the more likely your liability is going to increase. And I have said, and Kathleen has put down, a broken gate is often worse than no gate at all. That means that you were aware that there was something that needed to be protected by putting a gate up. And if it breaks and you just never take steps to fix it, that's actually worse negligence than if you never had a gate at all. If you never had a gate at all, you can potentially argue that there was no need for a gate, right? But there had to have been a reason you put a gate there in the first place. So if the gate breaks and you never fix it, that speaks more to negligence than not having one might.
And so let's transition to kind of resident notification. So if you have a broken gate or there's, a ton of recent car break-ins, how many times and how many ways does a property manager really need to notify residents? Is there a standard or does it depend on jurisdiction?
Depends on jurisdiction and also circumstances, but I think at minimum, some sort of situational awareness notification is warranted. Just a general email to your whole community, just saying, "Hey, we are aware that there was a break-in or there's been several break-ins, whatever it is. Here are some tips and reminders for all of you residents as to how to keep yourselves safe. Number one, lock your cars, like Ed said. Make sure that you click it twice so you hear the beep so you know for sure that your car is locked. Never leave anything in your car. I even hide my phone charging cable. I don't leave anything visible in my car at all. People will break in if they see a quarter in your cup holder because they think potentially there's more. Some of my neighbors leave their cars completely empty and unlocked all the time, just because that way they don't have to deal with somebody breaking their window to get in just to find nothing. So that those are all good, just simple like safety tips and tricks. Be aware of your surroundings at all times. If you're coming in late at night to the parking garage, don't have headphones in blasting music so that you can't hear what's going on around you. And these are all things that would potentially be harmful to a tenant if they were to bring a negligence claim against you later. We're going to get into that in a little bit. And also, it's important for them to report issues to you, to management, when they see them. It's a group effort, right? You guys can't fix problems that you aren't aware of. So the more people that see something, say something. If they notice somebody suspicious in the parking garage or somebody skulking down through an entrance, it's very important that they let you know that. It does start to trigger your potential liability because now you've got the actual notice portion going on, but it's a group effort. I always like to say, help us help you. It's a group effort. If you see something, you got to let us know. We can't fix what we don't know is a problem.
So let's transition to, obviously it varies from state to state in terms of the negligence law. So we'll kind of cover this super briefly. And we're also going to throw a link in the chat if you want to check out your specific state's liability. So check that out. But Melinda, for a property manager sitting in a pure contributory negligence state, what does that mean practically if a resident files a claim after their car is broken into? And how different is that exposure from someone operating in a comparative negligence state?
So there's a lot of variation between the types of negligence standards that attach. My home state of Maryland happens to be one that is pure contributory negligence. That means that if the injured party is even 1% responsible for what happened, then they get nothing. They get nothing at all. The landlord could be 99% at fault, but if the tenant is 1% at fault, it's a done deal for them. Then you have comparative negligence, which is more like a percentage. It's comparative. The landlord could be 50% responsible. The tenant could be 50% responsible. In that case, the tenant would be entitled to recover 50% of their damages. Whatever your percentage of fault was, that will reduce your total damage amount. There are different types of comparative negligence. Some are pure comparative negligence, others are partial. So that just sort of affects the breakdown of the percentages. So it is important to be aware of what your negligence standards are in your state. But I will say, even here in Maryland, where it's pure contributory negligence, it's never a slam dunk for a landlord. It's always subjective. It's up to a judge or a jury. And pure contributory is sort of going out of favor. A lot of people think it's unfair. Why does it mean that I get nothing if I'm only 0.5% responsible for this? That is up to our state legislature to make the change. They haven't done that yet. But in practice, I do not really see a lot of cases get completely dismissed outright based on the contributory negligence argument. It's unfortunately more complicated and more painful than that.
Yes. Okay. So thanks for covering that. And again, there's a link in the chat if you guys want to check out your specific state's negligence laws. But let's go ahead and move on. So cameras are one of my favorite things. Documentation, I know, is one of your favorite things, Melinda. So let's talk a little bit about that. I know I often get a lot of pushback and, the objection that cameras equal more liability. I would love for you to kind of talk about that, Melinda, put that to rest, and then I'll also talk about the importance of documentation.
It's just not true that when you have cameras, you have more liability. Now, it is possible that the cameras they'll shed more light on liability that you already had, but that liability exists no matter what, right? An incident happens. The presence of cameras doesn't necessarily mean that it didn't happen. Where I find it helpful is that it can show you exactly what happened, and you can be fully aware of everything that happened and where you may be negligent or have liability. I think it is better to know up front at the start of this stuff the way that it's going to go. If you look at camera footage and it's very clear that the landlord is at fault, then typically that's a case that we or my team and I would try and settle. We would not want you to spend $15,000 to $20,000 on legal fees taking a losing case to trial. We would tell you, let's just rip the Band-Aid off right now, get this settled, get it done. It gives you more situational awareness when you're going into these types of litigation issues. I also think that cameras can be helpful, particularly in contributory negligence states. It can show what the tenant did. Did they lock their car doors when they were walking away? If they didn't, or if they left a window cracked or, a sunroof open or whatever, that's contributory negligence right there. That's them not doing everything that they could do to help avoid this type of issue. So more often than not, in my opinion and experience, cameras will help the landlord because it will cut down on factual disputes when you get to trial. There's no more, well, the tenant says that this is how it happened and the landlord says that this is how it happened. The camera shows you how it happened. Then you're basically just getting into the legal arguments of where the liability falls, how much the liability is. I've seen tenants who will try and claim that their entire car was vandalized by a criminal third actor, and then we look at the security footage and that car was messed up before the crime even happened. You can find all sorts of issues that were there when it started, and that will lower your liability, not raise it.
Yeah, and what about documentation? I know that's something that you kind of drive that point home left and right, and it is super important. If you could touch on that just a bit.
We win and lose these cases on documentation. The more documents that you have, the better your chances are. Because you can say, well, we went out there and we fixed it, or we do regular property inspections. But if you don't have the documents to back that up, it's screaming into the wind, right? Because someone can always come along and just say, well, that's not true. And then it's he said, she said. And then it's kind of just a crapshoot in front of a jury or a judge. So if you are doing regular property inspections and just walking your garage, which you should be, you need to document that and thoroughly document it. Put down the date and approximate time that you did the inspection. Make sure you note any issues that you saw. Make sure you note any issues that you didn't see. Make sure you put all lighting working as expected, as opposed to just nothing there. Observed no excessive trash or whatever else it is. It's also important that these documents are objective. They should not be based on opinions. It shouldn't be, I think that this is going to be fine. It should be, we found no issues because of X, Y, and Z. If you later go back and you follow up, if you did notice issues on your walkthrough, make sure that you document what you did to address those issues. Again, date, time, add it to the file. Try and complete these things as close to the incident or the event as you can. The further out you are, if you write a log of your walkthrough 3 weeks after it happened, that is potentially problematic because everybody forgets things. I forget things all the time. So we want to document things while it is fresh in the person's mind. That way, it carries more weight potentially at trial. Maintenance logs are very important for this type of thing. And you want to show what time the maintenance request came in or what time your employee noticed the problem. You want to show the time that it was fixed. And you also want to put down what was done to fix it. Don't just say resolved. Say resolved by replacing the light bulbs or trimming back the trees that were blocking the camera. Explain exactly how you fixed the problem. If you could take pictures, even better, because that's a visual thing that juries love, being able to look at stuff, whether it's pictures, whether it's security footage. That really goes a long way to being helpful. So make sure you document all of those kinds of things. And if you get a verbal report from a tenant of an issue, you need to document that too. Make a note to the file just saying so and so came in today around 3 p.m., reported whatever, a big puddle in the garage. Okay, then you know exactly when you got the constructive and actual notice, and then you know exactly what you did to fix it, whether it was go out there and you put an orange cone so nobody falls into the water or whatever it is.
Documentation truly can be the make or break, so that is a very important thing to remember. Ed, do you have
Just tell
anything?
clients, document way more than you think is necessary. And then when you think you've written so much that my head is going to explode, write a little bit more and you'll probably be good. It'll probably be enough.
Drive that point home, Melinda. We love it. Ed, I was curious if you had anything with your expertise with your background with UPS and now your new role with Cloudastructure, anything you'd like to add with the importance
Yeah,
of.
there's a couple of things I just want to reiterate because I think obviously Melinda did a fabulous job covering all of this. But from an investigator standpoint and prevention standpoint, I just want to reiterate a couple of key points. A clean car causes a bad guy to go to another location, right? So if you have nothing in your car that's visible from the outside, the chances of them breaking in are greatly reduced compared to something that's in your car. And she hit it right on the head with even a quarter. A quarter will draw people into breaking your car. Cameras. Think of cameras this way. When you're putting everything together on a liability case or an investigation, the cameras provide a truth statement. The picture's not going to lie. You're not going to get into a lot of argument between two people that have a difference of opinion. A picture, a video is a true statement. So think of it that way. Then documentation. Make sure that you have the who, the what, the why, the where, the when, and the how. And then after you have all of that, go through it and then ask yourself, well, what about this? Try to find areas where somebody from the outside would ask a question about your documentation and then answer that question. That's what I would add.
Great insight, Ed. Thank you. Let's go ahead and transition to talking about insurance. So, Melinda, we'd love for you to cover kind of the insurance gaps that property managers often don't discover until they have a claim. Like what standard policies often exclude, where coverage may fall short in parking garage scenarios, and what managers should really be asking their brokers.
Generally, when you are managing rental property, particularly multifamily, your insurance coverage is going to be kind of like a stew, right? It's a goulash. It's multiple policies that hopefully, when you put everything together, creates a Venn diagram that covers all of your bases. You've got your commercial general liability insurance, or your CGL, which is important to have for a lot of different reasons. But it's important to note that a lot of those policies exclude assault and battery claims. Okay, so that's not gonna get you 100% protected there. Also, another thing to be aware of there is that there's typically no gross negligence coverage. So if one of your employees is the one that broke into the car, for example, and you hired this employee knowing that they had or should have known that they had a criminal record for car theft, that is a gross negligence. That's something that's so bad that anybody should have been able to see it and cut it off at the pass. CGL often will not cover gross negligence, so you need to make sure you have a backup on that. Your E&O coverage is good, but it will often exclude bodily injury. So if someone gets hurt in a criminal incident in your parking garage, your E&O is not going to do it. And then you've got your umbrella coverage, which has its own exclusions. But umbrella coverage can be helpful because, in theory, it sort of fills in the gaps that are left by the CGL and the E&O. So hopefully, if you've got all of this together, you've got a melange of insurance coverage, and that will protect you as much as possible. I'm sure you guys all have insurance brokers. They know a lot more about the front end of policy coverage than I do, I'll be honest. And they are very helpful in assisting property owners with crafting the stew of policies that will help ensure that you are covered as much as possible. But it's also important to keep in mind that insurance doesn't eliminate your exposure. It doesn't stop you from being sued for these kinds of things. It reshapes the exposure, and it provides assistance when it comes to litigation. A lot of insurance policies will provide you a lawyer for these bigger cases so that you don't have to break the bank just to fight whatever case it is.
And so what kind of questions should property managers be asking their insurance brokers specifically about parking garage incidents?
I mean, I would just make sure that you are specifically asking, when it comes to each policy, what is covered here and what is excluded here. Oftentimes, insurance policy holders, and this happens to everybody, not just property managers, won't realize that their policy doesn't cover specific incidents until one of those incidents happens, and then it's a denial of coverage or a denial of claim with a long frustrating explanation of, oh well, we don't cover this and we don't cover this and we don't do that. You want to be aware before you even purchase the policy of what is going to be excluded and what is going to be covered. That way you can never protect yourself 100%, but you can hopefully get to like 95.
Very, very important information surrounding insurance. So let's go ahead and transition to talk more about some of the actionable items that property managers can take right now. And most of these, are quick wins that don't really require a full infrastructure overhaul. So Ed, could you talk about some of these important actions that could be taken right now?
Sure, absolutely. These are really areas that have either no or very minimal cost to do, and it really should be on the forefront of your security procedures to make sure that you're looking at very closely. So the first one is trim for sightness, right? You want to make sure that your bushes are 3 foot of clearance, and your tree canopies are cut down to 7 feet. And the reason for that is not only does it allow your cameras to have clear sight of specific areas, but it really provides not only your occupants, but yourself an opportunity to have clear vision of areas that could be of concern, or just areas where somebody could be hiding in wait that would no longer be there by trimming those bushes back or those trees down. A big one is the gate and the door checks. So this should be a routine every day, every 10 hours, 12 hours, where you're making sure that the doors to your stairwells are not being set up for a bad actor to get into. And what they will do is they will come in, they will open the door or get into the parking garage and exit a stairwell door, and they will jam a stick or a rock or paper, something in the locking mechanism to allow that latch not to engage. And then they will come back during hours of darkness, typically, or other hours, and gain entry through that particular door. If you have gates that have the ability to have an arm that comes down or slides open, typically they all have adjustments to the amount of delay that the gate has to close, and you can adjust that down 8 to 10 seconds to allow that gate to come in or that arm to come down, preventing vehicles from piggybacking on top of each other to get into the property. Broken windows, Melinda mentioned this earlier. This is a huge area that criminals will target if your property looks like it's not being taken care of, if there's trash around, if there's broken glass, that indicates that there's previous break-ins. And then the other big one is graffiti. If you look at criminal gangs, for example, they're going to mark their territory, or they're going to mark areas for easy targets. So if you see any type of numbers being painted on your curbs or your poles or the side of your building, get it taken care of very quickly, because it could be, not always is, but it could be criminal gangs that are marking you for their territory or as an easy target. Light boosting, so get with your maintenance folks. Make sure if you have any extra white paint that you're using that to paint the poles in your parking garages or the ceilings. That white paint really does reflect existing lighting and make sure that it brightens that area up. It eliminates hiding areas. It's easier to recognize people standing than it would be if it's dark in a corner where you wouldn't really be able to identify somebody standing there or behind cars. Mirror repurposing, check with your maintenance, see if there's any mirrors that are setting in storage that you can use, bring them up, get them set. Make sure that the existing mirrors are turned properly, where you're not allowing blind spots in your stairwells or corners or turns in parking. That's an easy one as well. Then again, the camera health check. You always want to make sure that you're having the lenses of the cameras clean on a regular basis, that you're double checking the angles of the cameras, making sure that they are still reflecting the zones that you originally had concerns with, and then making sure that they're obviously working and capturing what you need. Very important. One thing that I would recommend that you do not use, and that's dummy cameras. I am not a fan of dummy cameras. Dummy cameras set up the expectation of security, and if something happens, we're going to come back, right? We're going to look, or the investigative body is going to look and ask about a particular camera because they believe there's going to be footage on there. There's no footage on there, and then you're going to have to answer to those questions. So don't even put yourself in that position. If you think you need a camera, make sure that it's a working camera. Eye level signage, make sure that you're no loitering or a camera or signs that indicate that the property is under surveillance are at eye level, the best that it can be, because people that are wanting to break in, that serves a deterrent for them. And a lot of times that will cause them to go to another area where there's no visible signs that they're being monitored through CCTV. So all of those are important areas. All of them are low cost and they're easy to do. So I would encourage you to make sure that you go back and check these specific areas.
I think that's all great. Yeah, they're low cost, zero, conversation needed in terms of like having budget conversations or anything like that. So that's a lot of options to kind of take right now. But for a property manager who's watching today, if they were to take one action, what would you say would be the most important, highest impact thing that they could do right now without that major budget conversation?
The more lighting you have, the less likely it is that it's going to draw attention to the thief or the bad actors. So I would really look at making sure your lights, so if you have any lights that are not functioning, that you replace them timely. They're going out, they're blinking, get them replaced. If you have any white paint, make sure you get it painted so it lightens and brightens the parking garage. That's a critical step, because the more light you have, the less likely are they're going to try and lie in wait and break into vehicles.
And I honestly didn't even know that about graffiti. Most people think it's just an eyesore or unsightly, but it could absolutely have more of a meaning than we might think it does. So I think
Absolutely.
that's a great thing to share as well. Melinda, do you have anything you'd like to share or add to
I
on
mean,
this?
I agree with everything that Ed said. I think he really covered it perfectly. Just most of the time, these are crimes of opportunity, right? It's not specifically targeted individuals. This is just somebody looking for what is going to be easy and quick and potentially net them a couple of dollars. Don't make it easy for them, make it hard. If the parking garage is lit up like a spaceship, they're probably not going to want to go in there because somebody is going to see them. The signs are a good deterrent because they just, it's not an opportunity. It's not opportune for them to stop and commit their crime on your property. They're going to want to go to the place next door that doesn't have all of the lights and the signage and the cameras. They will go where it is easy and where they think they can get away with it.
So let's talk about, how to apply these and how to really, talk about resident communication strategies. How can we share this with residents and get them to actually do these things? Ed, if you would touch on these, that would be great.
Well, sure. I think a lot of these we've touched on previously, and the reason that we're going to repeat them is because of the importance that they hold in addressing this issue. But really, we talk about the empty car is the best defense. We talked about keeping the cars locked, windows closed, never leave a car. All of these items are critical in a prevention standpoint and awareness standpoint, where property managers can have a document that's part of their packet that they provide to their tenants of best practices to be followed. They have a couple of here that we haven't talked about so much, and that's make eye contact and say hello to people in the garage. That is a huge deterrent because a bad actor, somebody that's casing the property to do nefarious acts, knows that they've now been recognized, right? Somebody's acknowledged them, and that's going to send them on their way a lot of the time, right? Because they don't want to be identified. They don't want anybody talking to them. And then obviously the suspicious activity, report it, do not approach, and making sure that the property management team is aware. That should be really encouraged by the tenant so that you reduce the ability to get into that should you have known, did you know scenario. So all of these are could be part of a campaign that you do every month, right? You have a raffle of somebody that's able to do something proactive or come up with another solution, or make it fun for your tenants as well. One of the things that I would add on here, we talked about this a little earlier, is juveniles. There's going to be a lot of juveniles in your multi-housing units anyway, but if you start seeing a lot hanging around the parking garage, start paying a little bit of attention to that, because that could lead to something that you're not aware of. And keep in mind, we touched about it earlier, that 4 or 5 hours later they're released. If they get arrested and they're out on the job, or out on doing another job, as I would refer to it, they're getting paid a lot of times. A lot of times there's an excitement to it and they're doing it for that reason. But a lot of times you have professional thieves that are paying juveniles a pretty good sum of money to go steal a car after they taught them how to do it, because they know they're not going to get into trouble that somebody that is an adult will get into. So kind of look for that as well.
Important things to keep in mind. And yeah, these are all really great tips to be able to share with your residents. It's more so just getting them to actually do that. Right. So yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. Make it fun, have a raffle, make it, engaging for your residents to actually make them, do their part in providing the safety and security of their own belongings and whatnot. So we're going to talk real quick about cameras. I know we've mentioned them quite a bit already, but it's a simple approach to taking that liability off your plate of having those cameras. And, that's often the most requested thing when it comes to what the courts are asking for, because it is an indisputable thing in terms of the camera and what was happening. And so what we do here at Cloudastructure is we bring AI intelligence together with the human aspect to really provide that proactive approach to security. A traditional camera system is often just reactive. You're reacting to something that has already happened. And something as simple as adding a speaker, an external speaker, to an already existing camera can create that proactive approach. When someone hears that voice talking down and it's, classifying, hey, you in the black hoodie with the black mask, we're going to contact the authorities. 9 times out of 10, that person is going to leave. And that really helps to deter that unwanted activity from progressing. And so it's just so important to add cameras in those high active areas. Also, Ed mentioned lighting, so you can do motion sensor lighting. That's going to be a great deterrent. And then also routinely checking the health of your security systems. You might have something in place, but make sure that they work. More often than not, someone doesn't know a camera hasn't been working until they're going to look for that footage on that specific camera, which is not when you want to find out that a camera has not been working. So routine health checks of all of your security infrastructure, super important. And then oh, you have something to add, Ed?
I'm just, I get excited when you talk about these key areas here, and you mentioned the speaker. I really have to jump in on that because the importance of having a speaker on top of your cameras is critical to success and prevention. There's a huge game changer when you have the ability to have a human agent give a talk down that is specific to the individual that is about to commit the act, where they are being recognized with their shirt color or their jacket color or their hat. That's just a tremendous preventative measure for you. And if you are thinking about adding speakers, I would highly encourage you to do that, because now you're really connecting the entire circle on your preventative side.
That was not something that we had back in the day when I was a property manager, and it would have been a true game changer. Another thing that we also offer with Cloud Structure, if you're utilizing the remote guarding, is we give you incident reports within 12 to 24 hours after the event happening. So we've drilled in the importance of documentation. That's something that we take that work off of your plate to an extent. And so we're providing a report that provides what was happening, who was present, what time and day, what area of the property it was happening, what actions we took, any recommendations that we have. So we're proactively and consistently addressing and auditing the health of your security infrastructure and how we can really hone in on making it the best security infrastructure that your property truly needs, because every property is so different. It's not a one size fits all. And so it's an ever evolving thing that we're working hand in hand with you and your team to make sure that your residents are feeling safe and that you're protecting yourself from that liability. Melinda, is there anything you'd like to add here?
I think that you guys covered all of it very well.
All right, so this next slide is just a really quick video that we kind of put together. I'll let you guys watch. That's a cute little video, quite comical. And so that's where you see our remote guarding in action. The AI detected the suspect. Our human agents contacted the authorities, and they were there right then and there to deter that unwanted activity from progressing. And so that's where we've really held strong with a 98% deterrence rate of progressing, of that unwanted activity from progressing. So I think that's a really cute video that kind of drives that point home. And remote guarding is something that can be used in so many different aspects, not just, protecting your parking garage or vehicle break-ins or anything like that. Lease violations, after-hour amenity uses. So we'd love to chat with you if it's something that you think could be beneficial at your property, or if you even just have questions about your existing infrastructure and kind of how you can make it work a little bit better for you and your property. So now I know we're nearing the end here, but I do want to kind of give you guys the opportunity to throw any questions our way. You have, access to both of these experts on this team here of panelists. So take this opportunity to ask them your questions for your own specific property. Does anyone have anything? Yeah. So how disruptive is implementation of your system on an already operating yard? I'm trying to think who would be best to answer that question.
I guess I would ask a question on the operating yard. I'm assuming that means taking over the existing camera infrastructure.
I would assume too. Yeah, that question is a bit vague. Yeah,
Well, I
and
mean,
that
if you're looking at it in that manner with the disruption of your current equipment, our ability to come in and put the CVR in, making sure the bandwidth is right, doesn't take much time. So the disruption is going to be minimal. Are you going to be down a little bit? Yeah, you probably would be down a little bit for the transition, but I wouldn't think that would be more than a few hours of daylight. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's very easy to bring existing cameras onto the CVR and whatnot. It's a pretty seamless transition. So I hope that addresses your question. Let's see, another question from the Q&A. Ed, can AI surveillance work with cameras a property already has, or does it require a full rip and replace?
So we provide a solution. When I say we, Cloud Structure provides a solution where we can work with your existing cameras. It's about 99% of agnostic. So we put the CVR on top of your existing network, and we're up and running very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so our system is camera agnostic. We can work with most existing cameras, 99% of existing IP cameras. There's, so that gives you the ability to bring your existing infrastructure onto our system. We know how much money you spend on that. We want to preserve that investment, absolutely. And, if there is an instance where the cameras might be older, they might not be high quality or high resolution. We can absolutely assist with replacing those cameras. We're a full end-to-end security company, so we want to take all of that work off your plate, and we can truly audit the how well your existing infrastructure is working. Does anyone else have any other questions they'd like to throw our way while we have just a few minutes remaining? You can throw it in the chat. If not, I went ahead and put our contact information up on the screen. I know myself and Melinda would be more than happy to address any questions that you have, even after the fact. You can shoot us a quick email. And then we also have a closing poll that just popped up on your screen. If you would like a personalized demo of our Cloud Structure AI surveillance system, go ahead and let us know, and we'll go ahead and contact you to schedule that. And then we also have another webinar coming up in the next month or so. If you'd like to pre-register, here is your opportunity. Well, it doesn't seem like there's any other questions that have come up. So I want to take this opportunity to, again, thank our panelists. Melinda and Ed, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing your expertise on this very important topic. And thank you for joining us.